moment, but let's just shed some light on Brentford, really. Another early goal for them, not quite within a minute, but just over.
So
That
close.
was crazy for a start. And I don't know how they didn't set up Wolves to kind of anticipate that attack from the very first kickoff. But yeah, that sort of eased them into the game, really, and set the tone, really, once again, for a really much-needed win.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we can come to expect with Wolves whenever they're playing is goals. And Brentford have been ruthless at times this season. I think everyone's been really surprised, especially with, obviously, the exit of Ivan Toney. But I think Brian Mbeumo has really come to the fore.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised, actually, that nobody came in for him in the transfer window and took a punt on him, because I just think he's got that next step in him. A lot of their attack transcends around him and the threat that he really brings. But then I think Kevin Sade, I think he had a good game as well, and Wolves just really struggled to contain them in behind in those pockets where Brentford just were able to find the space. And I don't know what's going on with that Wolves team. There's been times this season in periods in games when actually they've looked quite good. They've looked pretty compact. They're cohesive as a unit. But the defensive side of their game, it just doesn't look like they know what they're meant to be doing as a team. And it's just whether the instructions from the manager have become a little bit confused and nobody really knows what their roles are. I think it's quite worrying, the situation I think that Gary O'Neill finds himself in. And that's crazy to say because we were giving him a lot of praise last season.
Yeah. Well, before we go in too hard on Wolves, Miles, let's just keep it on Brentford, really. And they deserve, I think, plaudits for scoring 5 goals, creating the chances the way they did. You've already mentioned that Dave was saying that Brian Mbeumo is having such a great start to life of this season with Brentford. But that's carried on from last season too. He was brilliant. Mikael Damsgaard, I thought, was a great link-up with him too. Their centre-backs, Nathan Collins and Ethan Pinnock, are a threat at the back and going forward. They're always up there for set pieces. That paid off too. There's a lot to like about Brentford when they're good, but I think in the last few games that's not been seen enough, really, has it?
No, it's funny, isn't it? Like Dave mentions about Wolves' defence being ropey, and you've got Nathan Collins, who they've picked from Wolves, scoring in a minute. It's a difficult one to kind of analyse from a Brentford point of view, and I think Thomas Frank will be in a weird state of mind about this, because actually they've let 3 goals in against quite a poor team. And it's only for the fact that Wolves basically put 5 on a plate for them. You mentioned that Brentford scored that early goal again. It's funny, I saw the Premier League had shared like the first minute of the game, like the build up to Brentford's goal. And I'm telling you now, it's the worst minute of football I've ever seen in the Premier League. They're just hoofing the ball back and forth from each final third to each other until it finally falls to someone to kind of build something up. And I think Brentford will take encouragement from the fact that they were able to carve the chances, but I know Thomas Frank's not happy with it. No, definitely
no.
Not. It's not the way he wants to win a game. He wants far more control than a kind of boxing match like this, and Brentford have that in them. It's just fortunate that they've got someone like Mbeumo, who had that period last season where Ivan Toney was suspended, to really stake his claim for being their main man. And I think in the summer it was always a case that he was going to be the priority to hold on to. So even if a club had come in for him, they'd have been commanding huge fees, more than they got for Toney, definitely, because they know he's a player they could try and build their future around. And then bringing in someone like Carvalho to back him up, who came on and scored as well, that's a great start for him. So yeah, it's an interesting result for Brentford, one that Thomas Frank will appreciate, but not necessarily be too enamoured with.
Yeah, I think a word of caution, I guess, for them to not get too carried away with the win that was kind of handed to them, like you say. And I think they'll be annoyed more than anything with some of the goals they conceded to Wolves as well, especially 8 Norris in the 93rd minute. They just switched off.
Yeah.
Strand Larson as well got in ahead of his marker and all too easily. So yeah, there's, I think, a couple of those goals they could have done better.